Hello.
How are you? I don't know why your thing didn't work, so please forgive me.
That's okay.
Okay, so I know you're shorter in time. Think you gonna come on camera? Um, we're gonna ask you a couple questions, give your answers. Can you come on camera for me, please?
Hold 1 second for me.
Okay. All right, it's 2:42. I don't want to, infringe on your time too much longer. I want to make sure you got that hard stop at 3. Can't hear you, Robert. Are you on
Oh,
mute? Okay.
okay. I didn't think I
Huh?
didn't think that this was going to be a camera interview, but I thought it was going to be just
Just
a.
a quick interview. I'm doing it on camera, and then it's going to be a reference where we can just upload it so people can see it for themselves. Nothing more, nothing less. It's all about transparency. It's not just you. I did it for everybody. Ready?
Let me just get situated
Okay.
in a place where it's going to be the best light.
We can see you.
All right. Let's see. Maybe it's not even the best seamless. Maybe I need to go.
Well, right now we have Representative Robert Reese, and we thank you for your time. We're going to be really respectful of it. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about your reelection bid for District 70. And ready when you are. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what is the biggest issue facing District 70 today?
There are several issues that are facing the district, but if you were wanting me to talk about the biggest one, I think that is all around affordability.
Okay.
One, I think energy affordability, particularly as we look at high electric bill rates. And now, even as I went to fill up my car yesterday, we're talking about gas prices that are nearing $5 a gallon. And
Yes.
so that is a really big issue. And one of the reasons why that issue is such a compounded issue is because not only does it affect the use of your own motor vehicle, but it really is going to begin to have compounded effects on the cost of other goods, the cost for food, the cost of the supplies that you have in your house, your household supplies, the cost of everything that has to be transported in this country. Those prices are going to be passed on to consumers. And unfortunately, consumers don't have the capacity to be able to withstand any additional upticks in pricings because people don't have um, higher household incomes that coincide with these higher costs. So I think that's one of the biggest issues of facing the residents in District 70. But that's just one. If you wanted me to kind of top the list with one, that's it.
Okay, great. What would you do differently from the current leadership?
Wow, there's a number of things that I would do differently. Um, One is the one thing that I've learned in this first term is there are few people that are advocating on behalf of the people. And what I mean by that is I have seen big industry really have its way in the state house. There's a few examples that I can provide. It was interesting just kind of listening to the Scout Motors debate. And it's not about the building of the facility, it's Scout Motors wanting to really sell the vehicles to the consumers directly, would have saved consumers about $8,000 per vehicle. And I was like, well, that seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
That bill didn't even make it out of committee, and the bill didn't make it out of committee because you got lobbyists for the car dealership lobby, and they don't want
Oh,
out selling cars directly to consumers because they want those cars to come to the dealerships and they tack on $8,000 and then the consumer gets stuck with that. And this is the thing that's really most interesting to me about just my my tenure in the legislature is I've seen this type of thing happen over and over and over again. And where you would think that people are there advocating and fighting on behalf of the people who sent them there. A lot of people are fighting on behalf of big business interest that send them there. So you really need to be
wow.
mindful of where people's contributions come from, because that will tell you a lot about where their ultimate voting loyalty will lie. And I'll be honest with you, we know that. And I don't say this to be disparaging my Republican friends or colleagues, but a lot of their interests are around business interests. And they think that providing that kind of support for the business community will have, for lack of a better term, Ronald Reagan's term, a trickle down effect on everybody else. But we haven't seen it. Other typical citizens have not seen that those benefits trickle down to them. And it's everything. We just debated the insurance bill and where consumers have been offered two free windshield replacements with their full coverage. That's
Mhm.
no longer going to be offered. That was just voted down
Wow.
on this week. And the thing that was crazy to me is the cost of those windshield replacements aren't something that consumers are just getting. Insurance companies have baked that cost into their premiums. And so when they now don't have to um, provide that types of services, do you think that the premiums are going to come down? No, the premiums aren't going to come down. They're still going to be making trillions of dollars, and the consumers are still going to be hurt. I can give example after example after example of things like that has happened. So if you really want to talk about what I would see, what I would do differently, or
Hmm.
what I would want differently done, it's a different kind of focus on how legislation is um, impactful to everyday citizens, you
Okay.
know, elderly individuals or people who are low to moderate income individuals. That's where I think a heavy emphasis should be placed. But that's where I am.
So how do you measure success for your first term?
Say it again.
How do you measure success for your first term?
I I honestly believe I learned this lesson that there are no permanent friends and there are no permanent enemies. There's just permanent issues.
Okay.
And so success for me, and I didn't even know that going into it because this is my first foray into politics. And
Mhm.
so I had to step back from this idea that there's this fight between Republicans and Democrats. When you go in there, you're kind of led to believe that
Mhm.
there's just this kind of dividing line and don't step across this line. And that, well, I wind up, and it's amazing how God works. I wind up sitting on the side where there are the Freedom Caucus members.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget Sarita Edgerton, who is one of the staunchest Freedom Caucus members, doing our freshman orientation. We had a civility training And it was an opportunity for us to really begin to kind of know how to really get along with each other, even though we might have some very um, polar opposite opinions on policies and issues. And she shared her story about abortions and her own abortions and how that led to, why she was such a staunch rights to life kind of person. And it was really eye opening
Okay.
for me. And it really did help me to understand that although I might not have shared the same philosophical or political leaning that she did, I really had a different respect for her. And so I got an understanding of how it really is an important piece of the puzzle to understand how to build collaborative opportunities across the aisle. And so that's the important piece that I learned during my first term, but I also learned that I had to be focused on an issue and I had to be knowledgeable about an issue and I had to be very much the expert of an issue. Because I think what people also don't understand is that we only sit on one committee. You don't have the luxury of sitting on multiple committees and hearing testimony from multiple different constituencies. You hear the testimonies of your committee, and the rest you have to really become. You have to rely on others to really be the experts in that area and help guide you through it. And so I learned that the issue that was going to be my issue du jour, for lack of a better term, was going to be energy. And how
Okay.
do I learn so much about what's happening in this energy world, particularly in District 70 and on the Richland County side, where we have a nuclear facility, we have a coal power facility, we have these growing solar plants or solar fields. And so, what is it about this issue around energy that really I needed to be very cognizant and knowledgeable about? And then, how could I also begin to shape the perspectives of my colleagues by really knowing this issue back and forth?
That's awesome. So what's one bill you would prioritize immediately?
I have to say my own. And my own bill, I have two bills, 5283, 5282. Those bills are around energy. And just like I said, you have to know your subject and then you have to know how to be able to address some legislation that would effectively deal with the subject. And if you sort of take this back to what I said was one of the top priorities for District 70, it was the the high cost of energy. So my bill was really one to say to electric companies that you could not have carte blanche opportunity to raise people's energy bills at your whim. And this new energy bill that we passed our very first year, of which I voted no on, that bill really gave energy or utility companies the opportunity to go back and have to raise energy bills every single year. And so the bill that I propose takes away that right from energy companies, and they would have to utilize the Public Service Commission to be able to then petition for a rate hike. And that petition would have to go through the Public Service Commission. But more importantly than that, the Public Service Commission would have to collect important information before they even made those rate hike decisions. It would be probably astounding to some of the people who listen to this to know that utility companies don't currently have to even keep data that says who gets their energy services disconnected and for how long those services are disconnected. And so if you don't know how many of the residents in District 70 or in the state of South Carolina, how many people are having their services disconnected and for how long, I don't think you can make a real educated decision about what you do with rate increases, not knowing the impact of the current rate on people's ability to keep their services. And so the bill would mandate that we start collecting that data. It would mandate an audit of the utility companies before we had an opportunity to do rate increases. And then it would also allow for utility companies to keep records on what are energy justice levels in communities. And what that means is that there's certain communities, particularly in District 70, which have to be at the core of my interest. There are certain people that are paying an astronomical percentage of their household income on energy. I went to a meeting in the Kirkwood community in Camden a couple of weekends ago, and an elderly lady said that she gets $1,200 in her disability check per month, and her electric bill was $1,100. I mean,
Yeah.
that when you start talking about that percentage of your income going towards energy, that's an important piece of this puzzle to know how many people in our respective communities in our state are paying an astronomical percentage of their household income in energy costs. And that's a part
Yeah.
of that bill too. The other bill that I had is that we would form a citizens council.
Saw that.
And that citizens council would then bring together people from around the state to form a council where they can begin to educate themselves around these energy issues so that people would then be able to have a better understanding. Because sometimes I think industry depends on people not being informed and
Okay.
not wanting to be informed. And therefore, they can then make some of these changes to legislation without people even understanding and not people understanding the connectivity between the legislative process and how it impacts their household finances.
Okay. So since we're short on time, what promises have you made but have not been able to keep yet?
I didn't make any promises.
Good job.
I didn't make any promises. I asked people to just trust that um, the service and the advocacy that I was bringing to the table prior to me
Hmm.
coming to the State House would be the same service and advocacy that I would have for the people of District 70 as I went there and served. And I've done that every single day, with the exception of 2 days. I've been at that State House. And I know that there is a narrative that says very differently, but every single day I have been at that State House and have been advocating and fighting for the people of District 70. It might not have been in those chambers, but it was definitely at that State House. And one of the things that I want to just mention about that is when I realized that you can't necessarily fight in your seat, I wanted to be able to build coalitions, which is what I just told you about, build coalitions with other entities that would then be able to help us, even when the help wouldn't come with a vote. And I'll give you an example. I built a coalition with Habitat for Humanities that I had to do outside of the chambers to be able to get them to commit to having District 70, particularly Lower Richland and the Eastover community, to be a community or a priority or a community of choice, and that they would then have a building project within that district that would bring affordable housing to the Lower Richland side of the district. Habitat made that commitment.
Hmm.
On Monday, they're meeting with the Eastover Town Council to make a presentation to formalize that commitment. And they're going to begin to unveil plans for that. And that is something that I'm really proud of because it didn't come from the legislative process.
Hmm.
It came from the close proximity that is needed to be in the House and have that kind of I think, representation or authority that comes along with the position. I had asked Habitat for this kind of opportunity before I got to be a legislator. I had made that request previously, and I will say that God's timing is everything because it also was probably very much a part of the divine providence to have Moya Jackson to become the executive director of the Richland County branch of Habitat for Humanities, and her
Okay.
in-laws be residents of Gaston. So there was an opportunity for those things to come together, but we didn't know these things. It was just the opportunity that I got really advocating and partnering, or at least communicating with Habitat State legislative liaison, that gave me an opportunity to meet Moya and to know that she had roots in Lower Richland, and then that conversation to begin to develop. Those are the kind of things that you can't do sitting in a seat, just taking votes, particularly on issues that you know aren't going to go your way. And I just want that narrative to be one in which people have a clearer understanding. I'm never going to be derelict to my responsibilities. I never have been. I
Okay.
never will be. We may differ. We may differ, Deshandra, on issues, policy issues, but I'm never going to be disrespectful. I'm never going to taunt. I'm never going to drag. I don't operate like that. And so I want that to be clearly understood, because that's not how I operate. And I'm not privy and not party to that kind of politics.
Okay.
Advocacy is one thing, politics is another thing.
Okay. So real quick, you're District 70 and you always speak about Eastover, but what about the rest of District 70? Why do you focus so much on Eastover? Like, for example, we're
Mhm,
talking about senior citizens and the help that they need.
mhm.
Um, what are some things that you can bring? Because if they're not in Eastover or in that area down there, they don't get to hear about it. And there are a lot of senior citizens in this area that need things like I know they did away with earmarks, so that's nothing you can
Well, no, that's not the case. They
okay.
did away with earmarks for our first term, and my earmarks were earmarks for Kershaw, and they were earmarks for Richland. I think that I think there's a misnomer that my focus is solely on
But we
Richland.
always
Well,
hear you
well, hold
say
on. Well, hold
Eastover.
on one
That's what
second.
I'm asking.
Let me hold on one second. Let me
My
just get
fault.
this out, because I talked about Habitat for Humanities because it is modeled on the Habitat model in Kershaw.
Okay.
Kershaw already had that model, and so it gave an opportunity. And because of my previous work with the town of Eastover, it was an easier opportunity for me to build that relationship with the Richland County version of Habitat, so I could then be able to have that as a model program. And I've talked to Moya Jackson, the executive director, to ask if that could be expanded to the rest of the Richland County side, Gaston in particular. I've been
Okay.
talking to some other churches in Gaston. I don't want to really talk about just who they are just yet, because I don't want to give that away. But also, it's a misnomer to think that I haven't really prioritized Camden, because Camden has been and is a huge focal part of this year's. Um, you call them earmarks. We like to call them community reinvestment funds. And
Okay,
so
so how
my
can
community
nonprofits
reinvestment, huh?
how can nonprofits get you to reinvest in them?
Well, here's the thing, because the Republicans stated that they were not allowing any more nonprofits to be the recipients of these funds. So
Okay.
they had to go through either state agencies, or they had to
Mhm.
go through either some other governmental
Okay.
officials. So in Camden, what I did was um, I talked to our Camden delegation chair,
Hmm.
Daniel Roberts, and he worked with the county council to make sure that my earmarks this year for Camden are going through county council. And
Okay.
those earmarks are specifically designed to upgrade two parks, particularly in the African American community. And they were done in consultation with the people in Kershaw County. And
Okay.
so I don't want to really share more about that just yet, because I really want that to officially pass. before,
Okay.
because there's a lot of still discussion because Republicans are still at the helm. And last year it was just the Senate president who, or me, I don't know if it's the president or if it was the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, who singularly made the decision that we weren't going to have these community reinvestment funds. They since said that this year we are going to do it, but I've gotten the necessary paperwork. I've gotten the necessary commitments. I am crafting the actual request so that those funds would be funds that I would commit to the Kershaw County side. And so
Okay.
I don't want there to be this kind of narrative. And I really was cognizant of this because my family is from Eastover. So I didn't want there to be this idea that, oh, he's only going to do Richland County and Kershaw gets nothing. No, I was very much intentional about being adamant. And I'll get you if we can do a follow-up sometime.
We sure
I'll
can.
get you the specific dollar amounts of the funding that went to Kershaw County.
Okay.
There was a $10 million request for the city of Camden, so that we were able to actually put that in as well. But I didn't want that to come under my specific um, community reinvestment funds because I'll be honest with you, the way it works is because Vince Shaheen is the mayor of Camden and has a very strong backing in the legislature,
Yes,
that
he
$10
does.
million is going to get passed anyway. But for constituents in communities that are very much underrepresented and pretty and low income, and particularly African American communities, if I don't push for those things, nobody pushes for them. And
I
they won't
respect that.
ever see benefits from the legislative body. And what that does is um, that creates this kind of thinking that no need in us being a part of the legislative process because we never get anything out of it. No
Okay.
need in voting because we never get anything out of it. No need in really being advocates about the issues because they never are a part of what we do. And I was adamant that that's not the message that I'm going to send because I wanted those people who were at the had the majority of the numbers in the district to also be represented. And so my community reinvestment funds are going for those issues.
Okay. I'm gonna respect your time because you had to be a hard 3 o'clock stop. I'm a little late stopping, but we can do a follow-up whenever you're available. And don't forget, May 11th, I'm expecting you and all the other candidates to show up to a seat at the table with candidates and community to discuss the issues where we're going to have moderators, and it's going to be at St. John Holistic Wellness Center.
Anytime you ask,
I
I'm
know.
going I'm going to make myself available and I
I
share
appreciate that.
for, and I don't mind doing a follow up. And I really appreciate the focus on the issues. And so
Yeah.
anytime there's an opportunity to talk about these, I'm on board.
Yeah, I just want to focus on the issues and make sure everybody in the community knows where each candidate stands. This is nothing personal about anybody. I don't endorse anybody that's running. I just want everybody to know these are your candidates. This is what they stand for. This is what they want to do. You make your choice. But I want to make sure because so long, for so many years since I've been voting, and I'm 47 now, it's all about, well, hey, you're about to vote for X, Y, and Z. But you never know what X, Y, and Z stands for because you're only voting for what somebody tells you. You see what
No,
I'm saying?
I understand. I understand greatly, and I really appreciate your efforts to put these issues out in front of the constituents. And I will say this: I was one of the persons who was adamant. If you don't bring anything back to the district, you don't need to go back.
That's true.
If you're not bringing anything to the district, what good are you in the house? And if I don't bring anything back to our district, I won't come back. And
And it's
that,
not
and
just
that's
the
the
House, it's the
that,
Senate, it's the council, it's
well, I can't
everything.
control those. I can't
I
control
know
those.
you can't, but I'm
I can
saying I
only
need
yeah,
everybody to know what
yeah.
they're voting
I,
for.
I get it. I get it. But
But
I will make a commitment to people. If I don't bring things back from the state house to District 70, I won't run for reelection. Period.
respect. I like that. Well, see you May 11th, and we'll do another follow-up after that. How about that?
No problem. Take care. Oh,
Thanks. You
and
have a great day.
happy Easter too.
Happy Easter. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate you.